Village of Woodridge for this Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. We call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kagan.
Present.
Trustee Abbott.
Present.
Trustee Krusek.
Present.
Trustee Page.
Present.
Trustee Martinez.
Present.
Trustee Blair.
Present.
Mayor Cunningham.
Present.
Quorum established.
Thank you very much. If you would please join us in a moment of silence and in dedicating tonight's meeting to the memory and honor of Mr. Arthur Berg, Mr. Daryl Duransky, both longstanding Woodridge neighbors and friends, and Mr. Domenico Lonzo. Our sincere condolences to the Berg, Duransky, and Lonzo families, friends, and neighbors. Our thoughts and prayers are with you all. And now, if you would please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, tonight being led by three departments: the Public Works Department, our Police Department, and our Finance team.
I pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, it's an honor. We have several recognitions tonight, and I would like to invite Chief Cunningham up for our first service anniversary.
All right. First off, I got to say that Pam is like a unicorn because it's hard to find any pictures of her, right? So I did find these ones. So thank you, Mayor and Board, for letting me to introduce 20-year anniversary for Pam Ward. Pam, you want to come up? She doesn't, but I'm going to make her come up anyway. I searched high and low for pictures for Pam, and I don't know how she managed to go 20 years without anyone taking pictures except for these 3 years. And I know in 2018, I made her take that picture when she was Employee of the Year for us. So Al, bring it. Paparazzi, let's go. As many as you can go with. So, all right. A little bit about Pam. She grew up in Downers Grove, went to Downers Grove North High School. She attended Illinois State University, got her criminal justice degree. And while she was an employee here at Woodridge, she got a social worker degree too, which I'll talk a little bit more as we move along. She was hired as a record assistant in December of 2001. For whatever reason, in September 2001, she left us to go to Naperville. I don't know why you'd go there, but she only stayed there for a short time and came back to us in February of 2002. She came back as a dispatcher for us. In November of 2004, she was assigned as an administrative assistant to the chief, and that's where she's been in that position since that time. In April of 2020, we had a reduction in force. We had 2 administrative assistants prior to that, and Pam took over the duties for all of the administration in the police department. So I just wrote down some of the things that Pam does. And one of the things I always come across when people ask me a question or, hey, they're looking for this, or they're looking for a file, they're looking for pens, they're looking for paper clips. I always say, ask Pam. Right? And all the officers can attest to that, right? Ask Pam, she'll know where it's at. And she does know where everything is at. So it kind of keeps us in order. But Pam is our alarm billing coordinator. She works with Nadine on that. And I see her or hear her pretty much weekly trying to talk people into paying their alarm bills. It's a tough job. I wouldn't want anyone else to have it, but she does a good job with it. She coordinates our department accounts, our billing, our payments. She assists with our budget process. She coordinates the department administrative reviews, our internal investigation. She helps us with that. She assists with our training coordination, the scheduling of training, the payments related to training. She assists in the documentation of our training. She's a union board member, very active. She assists our officers with anything and everything from uniforms to payroll questions to anything they could think of. She's the go-to for the answers. I always just say, go ask Pam. She has helped us, and it's been a great success so far for our onboarding for our social worker. Pam has brought a wealth of knowledge that has helped us with the case assignments and making Felicia, our new social worker, feel so welcome. And she just told me that today. She says it's been unbelievable for her as far as working with Woodridge, and Pam has been a big part of that. She reviews the daily reports, make sure that I know that if something needs attention, she brings it to my attention. She's our main point of contact for FOIAs, which is a full-time job in itself. I think I know that you would agree with that, right? She is our department gatekeeper for all inquiries from the public, other law enforcement agencies, defense attorneys, state's attorneys. She's the one that answers those questions when they come in. It's a huge, huge job. She is my design consultant. When it comes to the new facility, colors and furniture, I go to her, right? I'm not making any of those decisions at all. She's the one I go to. She is someone that I really, really rely on in this particular area. As my whole adult life, I've been in law enforcement, and I'm very sensitive to being caught in a groupthink situation. I could go down the hall and talk to any one of the officers, and they'll probably agree with me. But when I really, really need to check myself to make sure I'm thinking critically, I go to Pam, because she will bring that opposite point of view. And we have great, great discussions about it. I don't always agree with her. She doesn't always agree with me, but she makes me. She does argue a little bit. But she always opens my eyes to that opposite point of view that I may not be able to consider. And that's something that's really, really important to me. And it's something I really, really appreciate. And it's something I'll always appreciate. And that is the main thing I think of with our relationship. She makes sure that I'm thinking of that always. So that being said, 20 years, I'm so proud to have you as an employee. I don't want to pick on you too much because you're right next to me and I know I'll get paid back. Thank you very much.
I have no prepared remarks, but I want to thank the village and Chief Cunningham for letting me stay all these years and have the opportunities and experiences that I've had in all my positions at the police department. And I've gotten to work with some really great people. So thank you all.
Pam, might not want to go too far, just so we can all say congratulations to you from all of us on the village board, the village of Woodridge, and all of our neighbors throughout our community. First of all, congratulations, but also thank you so much for all you do, always going above and beyond. And 20 years goes by pretty fast when you love what you do and it shows. So, but we did get a fourth picture of you today.
Yes.
So you're happy to know. Congratulations, and thank all the officers that are here with us this evening to show their support and care and appreciation for you too.
That's how perceptive he is. These are my favorites.
The one thing I do want to mention, it's one thing that a police officer sees a lot of difficult things in life in our job, but Pam sees it too on the other end, right? But she doesn't have a chance to talk to it. And I know she shares a lot with John about that, and I appreciate all your support for the police department too. So thank you.
And thank you for being here, John. And next, I'd like to invite Director Bethel from our Public Works Department to come up, please. Good evening, Director Bethel.
Already hear Ryan snuffling back here. So I'll have Ryan Perez and Omero Quiroga, if you want to come up and join me. So Omero and Ryan are both maintenance workers in the Public Works Department, being recognized for the 2021 Tony Fowler Department Employee of the Year Award. Just as a reminder, so Tony retired as our superintendent back in 2017 after 39 years of service to the village. And we always thought Tony epitomized the village's values of high quality and superior services during his tenure. And so we had renamed that award after him when he had retired. So what we ask is that the nominees for the award reflect the following factors: that they demonstrate a continuing concern, loyalty, and dedication to the department, that they consistently perform in an outstanding fashion in meeting the department's and village's goals, and they work well with their peers, supervisors, and provide outstanding assistance to citizens and other village employees. So under the process, anybody in Public Works can nominate anybody else other than the director, and then all the supervisors get together to talk about those nominations to pick who we think most reflects that those characteristics and for the award. So it hasn't happened since 2010 as far as having dual award winners, but when we read the nominations, these two, as you'll hear, really hit the mark. So just to share a little bit of background on both of them, Ryan started in October of 2016. Omero started with us in April of 2019. One of the things that's similarity, we were able to poach both of them from other local government entities. Ryan was a seasonal in 2 other public works departments. Omero was working for the DuPage County Forest Preserve. And once we interviewed them, we go through 3 rounds of interviews with every person, and every round just kind of outstanding marks where we almost knew from the beginning that they were going to be really superior employees for us. And so both of them have also similarity-wise worked underneath Dave Zalad in the water crew. So start to go into some of the items that came up in their nomination, that they're both exceptionally skilled heavy equipment operators. They're both dedicated coworkers and teammates on jobs. They both have well-rounded skills in many different areas of public works and perform their work in an outstanding fashion. They both have demonstrated the ability to work on difficult excavations and pipe repairs. And I think what really shines through, especially as we get to the end of the winter and the amount of work that the public works departments traditionally do during that time period of the year, that they both have extremely positive attitudes and strong customer service skills. So one of the items that's really unique and kind of rose to the top for both of them is their availability and response after hours, which is guaranteed when most emergencies happen. It's not during the workday, it's after hours, it's on the weekend, it's on Christmas, it's on holidays. So each person in the department takes an on-call throughout the year. You know, some people will give it up, other people will take it, kind of depends on schedules, personal obligations. So during the course of the year, Orion volunteered for 9 extra weekly duties where he was the on-call person for the village. Ryan took on 6 extra duties. Ryan's actually on call tonight. His supervisor is covering for him so that way he could have a little bit of quiet time to know he's not going to be called out. So in any given year, between snow plowing, sanitary backups, whatever emergencies might happen, the average maintenance worker is probably going to work about an extra 200 hours during the course of the year on average. 2021 was unique with COVID, with other personal medical issues, FMLA. And so these two stepped up in the department, with Orion working over 400 extra hours and Ryan working over 300 extra hours. So they were the people that said yes every single time when we called and needed somebody to come in, and again, really sacrificed to provide services to the community. So just to kind of give you a comparison on Orion and Ryan, the next person who worked the most amount of overtime hours was Bob Goy, which, if you remember, was the winner last year and actually was a prior winner back in 2004. After Bob on the list was Vic Lafreddy, which, if you remember, was the winner 2 years ago and also the winner in 2014. So the only 2 people that have ever won it twice, and these 2 are the ones that are really just kind of neck and neck and demonstrating what high quality employees they are. Both always kind of looking to improve themselves. Orion's working toward his water plant operator certification. Ryan Perez wanting to upgrade his CDL license. And so just give you a little bit of insight on both of them. Orion, having come to us from the Forest Preserve, he's in the water crew, but actually really tremendous forestry and arborist skills, which luckily, as we came upon what happened last June with the tornado, Orion was one of our leads with the chainsaw out, clearing debris and material. And his nomination, again, as far as some of his individual skills, talking about his repairs, dealing with broken bells, pipe replacements, blowouts, and how skilled he is down in the excavation hole. Now, what's interesting is when you say Ryan, you think, oh, Ryan in the department, because these 2 are always out on every job together. So actually in the nomination that came in for one of them, it said it wouldn't be fair to mention Orion without mentioning his dynamic duo of a partner, Ryan Perez, who, when teamed up on any digger job, tend to become a united superpower. In all seriousness, they work together seamlessly. I've seen it firsthand with both of their talents that they bring to the table. And so one of the things in the department, we always try to take pictures of people on their first or one of their first leaks that they repaired. And here's one of them here. But this is the slide I really love, because you got these two guys in the worst of conditions, covered in mud, cold and wet, and they are always smiling and doing such a hardworking job to serve the community. On Ryan Perez, his name may be familiar. He was in the AM last year, if you remember, when he was on truck 300, which is the truck that does water meters, high bills, other kind of miscellaneous resident appointments. You know, within a span of just a couple of weeks, we had 4 residents call to follow up to say what a polite and helpful individual he was. And so, at least from 2004 to present, when I've been here, there have never been that many compliments that have come in that short of a period of time for a person. But Ryan really does take that extra effort with every person he's meeting with. The other item to mention, and it didn't work out due to snow, we were hoping to have Sergeant Moeller, who was here previously, and Ryan Perez at the same meeting, because it was actually Ryan Perez's idea to make that nomination of Sergeant Moeller. He had just helped us out, and Ryan and I were talking, and Ryan said, we should put in a nomination for him. And if you remember, again, the heartfelt words he kind of laid out on Sergeant Moeller really reflect who he is, and for both of them, kind of the personalities and demeanor and positivity that they bring to the department. So there's a lot of special employees in the department, but these two definitely set the bar, and we thought were very noteworthy to be recognized this year. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we're so happy that you're both here with us tonight so we can celebrate you and thank you and also congratulate you. Just outstanding, your service, the great works that you do throughout our village. As we've talked before, so many people did write in and say how much they appreciate all the hard work. And it has been a very tough year, 2 years, but here we have more neighbors writing in to say thank you, and thank you for the great job and good work, and just for being awesome representatives for our village and our public work. So congratulations, Omero. Congratulations to you, Ryan, and really to your entire team. You're just outstanding. So on behalf of all of us, we thank you and congratulate you.
We do have flowers for both of them, if I can bring those out.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Director Aletto from our Finance Department to please come up.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Board. I'm here to recognize Tracy. Come on up. It's really my pleasure tonight to introduce to you our new Fiscal Operations Manager, Tracy Morocco. Tracy joined the village back in 2013. She first came to the police department as their management analyst, and then she came to the finance department in August of 2016 as our finance analyst. So she's really just been a wonderful addition to the department. And I know Chief also felt the same way. He was sad to see her go from the police department. So all through, she's been here 8+ years, and all through that time, Tracy has really worked hard. She's looked for opportunities to learn and grow whenever she can. She's made my life really easy as a manager because she knows what needs to be done and she does it. She does ask for feedback and input when it's necessary, but other than that, she is just on autopilot and she just gets the job done. I just bow down to her. I can't even imagine how she manages all the multiple deadlines that she does with such efficiency and grace. And so I go to her to help keep me on track, honestly. So Tracy has a very strong work ethic. She's evident in all the great works that she does here at the village. She's liked and respected by her peers. She's received Employee of the Year in the police department. She was Civilian Employee of the Year. She also was Employee of the Quarter last year for the Village Hall here. And she's just really a valuable asset. I can't speak highly enough of her. Tracy is part of the department's exempt team, so she meets with us regularly. We discuss ideas and projects and issues that may be occurring within the department. She effectively manages, all of you know her very well, through the budget process, right? So this is a 6-month plus process, and she's been instrumental in the village being recognized annually for our budget document by the Government Finance Officers Association. She's also the one who created our budget in brief. And so that is our small, like 16-page report that really distills our 550 plus page budget document into an easy to read format intended for the non-financial user. And so it's an excellent report. And we've also been recognized by GFOA annually for that report as well. Besides leading us through the budget process that you're familiar with, she's also now managing our village's audit. And that is second in size and scope only to the budget. That is also a several month process. And I've heard nothing but praises since she took this over from our auditors. They said that the process couldn't go any smoother than it already is. And so when our longtime accounting manager, Linda Dalton, announced her retirement last year, it really gave us a great opportunity to assess the needs in our department and also to look at some succession planning. And so we knew Tracy was really ready to take on that next step in her career, and we were happy to be able to offer that to her as a new management role within our department. As part of her new position, Tracy is now also responsible for our general ledgers, our month-end closes, and just about every financial report that the finance department produces. She additionally now manages a new budget analyst who you will have the opportunity to meet in just a moment as well. And professionally, Tracy is actively involved in the Illinois Government Financial Officers Association. She currently is sitting on two committees. One is their membership committee and the other one, I believe, the Gen X committee. Is that right? Okay. I expect that we are going to continue to see great things from Tracy. I really hope that she continues to make Woodridge her work home for many, many years to come. Congratulations, Tracy, on your promotion. It is very well deserved. And I'd like to congratulate you. I was going to introduce your family, but
It's bedtime. I apologize.
exactly.
I have two little ones.
Yes. So timing, not that they didn't want to be here. They're here with you in spirit. And so congratulations, Tracy.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. I enjoy working with the village board and everybody in this room. And I look forward to growing with Woodridge in the future.
Tracy, on behalf of the village board, the entire village of Woodridge and all of our neighbors, thank you so much for your excellence in work and just the tremendous job and helping through the last year plus doing what you do and then going beyond that to what a night of celebration for us as a village. Just tremendous colleagues that were able to say such remarkable things about, from Pam, Omero and Ryan and yourself, Tracy. Thank you. We're very grateful for all you do and everyone. And we're now very excited to meet.
And without further ado.
Yes.
So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy because she's actually going to introduce her.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Good evening again, everyone. I'd like to introduce you all to Andrea Ayala. This is our new budget analyst. Andrea has a background in the food and beverage industry, actually. And she comes to us with a degree in business entrepreneurship from the University of Illinois at Chicago. And she also has an associate's degree in culinary arts from Kendall College. So while she was in college, she also managed the original Ferrara Bakery in Chicago, which you might know from the Ferrara Pan Candy Company. They're related. And if that wasn't enough, she also started her own business, an event planning business, A to Z Events, where she managed mostly weddings, clients, brides, budgets, client expectations. And if that wasn't enough, she also worked at a few different Marriott locations in Chicago. Most recently, she worked at the location on the Magnificent Mile, where she was the food and beverage supervisor. And then the pandemic hit, and Andrea became CEO of the Ayala household. And she recently moved to Woodridge in the fall of 2021. And shortly after that, she realized it was time to rejoin the workforce and enter in the budget analyst position. And Andrea just blew us away during the application process and the interviews. And we couldn't be happier to have her. On a personal note, Andrea is Ukrainian. English is actually her second language. Ukrainian is her first. And she also speaks Spanish. She's married with two children, Alexander, who's 3, who loves puzzles. And he's getting ready for preschool, even though it's months away. He's very excited. and Anastasia, who's one and loves music and cooking and not sleeping, fortunately for her. It's bedtime for her family as well, so we're both flying solo. It's a mom's night out. Would you like to say anything to the village board?
I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to join the village. I'm excited to be part of the community and part of just the whole government process. Being a budget analyst is exciting, and it's very different from anything that I feel like I expected to do, but I love it already, and I'm excited to continue and to be part of this awesome group.
Well, wonderful. We welcome you on behalf of the village board and our village and all of our neighbors throughout Woodridge. Sincerely welcome you. We're so excited to have you here, and just would want to share with you our deepest thoughts and prayers for Ukraine and everyone impacted by this conflict in the Ukraine. But our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. And we're just very excited, though, to have you here and to be able to celebrate you starting, and that you love here being with the team and the finance department at Village of Woodridge. This hopefully will be for many, many, many years. So we welcome you.
Thank you.
I just want to again say thank you so much to Pam, and congratulations, and Ryan and Omero and Tracy. And then also it was really wonderful to meet Andrea. We'll now move to comments from the public. Going to just pause and acknowledge any written public comments that have been received prior to the meeting that do not relate to tonight's agenda.
Good evening, Mayor. We have not received any. Thank you.
And then now I'm going to ask if there's any members of the public who have joined us this evening that would like to make a comment not related to tonight's agenda.
There are not, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And then we're going to move to comments related to the agenda. I'm going to just pause and ask if there's any comments that did come in prior to the meeting that do relate to the agenda this evening.
Mayor, we have not received any.
I'm going to go ahead and check again and see if there's anyone who has joined us that wishes to comment on items that do appear on tonight's agenda.
We do not, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move right to our omnibus agenda. So I'm going to ask please for a motion to approve item A and the acceptance of items B and C. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Page, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek. Is there any request for a separate item? Or there's only one, so we can probably move that along. Going to ask our administrator if he would please review the items on the omnibus.
Thank you, Mayor Cunningham. Members of the board, good evening. Item A, Resolution 2022-17 is a resolution executing an amendment to the agreement between the Village of Woodridge and Clark Environmental Mosquito Management, Inc. for the 2022 mosquito abatement services. This would be in the amount of $43,430. Item B is previous board minutes from the February 3rd meeting. And last item C are the accounts payable registers for February 11th and February 18th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. And if our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Abbott.
Aye.
Trustee Krusek. Aye. Trustee Page.
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Kagan.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Under communications and correspondence this evening, under the mayor's report, I do have a few items. The Woodridge Police Department invites you to their Coffee with a Cop on Friday, March 11th. The event is at the Donut Company, Woodridge, which is located at 2019 87th Street in the mini mall, which is in front of the Gordon Food Service. Please join us between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. And the Coffee with the Cop builds upon the Woodridge Police Department's community outreach initiatives. And it's always a great way to have a conversation and connect and meet our officers, have some coffee together or tea with the chief. There is no meeting agenda. There's no speeches or specific topics, just informal conversations about what matters to you and Woodridge. So hashtag Coffee with the Cop, and we hope to see you there. 2, our Woodridge Library will host ISA certified arborist Debbie Flugel on Tuesday, March 15th at 7 p.m. for a presentation that guides on planting new trees with experience helping communities. This is Debbie. She has great experience with helping communities recover from wind events and other disasters as a part of the Illinois Urban Forest Strike Team. She will focus on proper planting questions that she can help anyone, and also care issues related to local planters. And she's coming in, and you do need to please pre-register, and you will receive a Zoom link. You can just visit the library's website, please. And lastly, our Woodridge neighbors can begin disposing of any yard waste beginning April 1st, right at your curb on your normal refuse collection day. 1 sticker is required for every 33 gallons, either unlined container or yard waste paper bag. Brush should be packaged in bundles no more than 4 feet in length and 2 feet in diameter. Each bundle does need to have a yard waste sticker attached and cannot weigh more than 50 pounds. Neighbors can also choose to do something environmentally friendly, and these alternatives would be to dispose of yard waste through either mulching or composting. Please visit DuPage County's website at www.dupageco.org for more information on composting. I hope you'll consider doing that. And again, that is my report this evening. Thank you so much. And Administrator Stonich, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First item this evening is item A, ordinance 2022-13. It's an ordinance granting a minor amendment to a previously approved site plan for Jefferson Junior High School track facility located at 7200 Janes Avenue. Applicant is Woodridge School District 68. Director Porter will have a brief introduction of the item. And then also we are joined this evening by Assistant Superintendent for Business Services for District 68, Mr. Curtis Sandin.
Good evening, Director Porter.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. As Village Administrator Stonich stated, I'm going to provide a brief presentation tonight, followed by a presentation by the School District 68 representatives. So tonight's consideration is for a minor amendment to a previously approved site plan for the Jefferson Junior High track facility located at 7200 James Avenue. And again, the applicant is School District 68. So I'll go give you somewhat of a brief timeline on what has occurred with respect to this particular project. Woodridge School District 68, in partnership with the Park District, received Village Board approval on March 21st, 2019 to construct various improvements on the 2 lots that make up the Jefferson Junior High school site: baseball fields, shot put, discus pads, dugouts, spectator areas, as well as the construction of a track with interior artificial turf field and associated sidewalks, lighting, seating, and other spectator improvements. For this request at that time, School District 68 sought zoning entitlements for a major amendment to their existing special use permit for school use, as well as a major amendment to their site plan. During the 2018-2019 zoning entitlement process for this project, there were several joint discussions held with the Park District, School District 68, village staff, and the public library here to discuss concerns over the library's parking lot potentially serving as a shortcut for spectators and participants, in which several concerns were expressed. Many of these same concerns were echoed by the village board, resulting in the continuation of the June 7th, 2019 meeting for consideration of an IGA between the Village of Woodridge, the Park District, School District 68, as well as the library for the town center parking lot expansion, until further analysis was conducted by the village's traffic engineer of the traffic/parking study that was originally submitted by School District 68. In September 2021, village staff noticed the installation of a pedestrian gate with a welcome sign at the west end of Jefferson Junior High track facility. This particular gate was not previously approved in any of the approved plans. In October 2021, village staff conducted a joint field check of the additional pedestrian access point installed with Mr. Curtis Sandin, Assistant Superintendent for Business Services for the school district, in which this joint field check confirmed that the installation of the pedestrian gate was not contained was not previously approved by plans via the approval ordinance. And he also stated that there were additional changes made, such as light pole standard installations. As a follow-up, village staff requested an itemized list of the changes that had occurred, which resulted in all of them requiring some level of village approval, either via staff and or via the zoning entitlement process. So that concludes staff's timeline synopsis of what has occurred with respect to the track facility. Again, School District 68 staff is here to walk you through their changes, and I will turn this presentation over to them. I will open up their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Great, how are you? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kurt Sandin, Assistant Soup for Business Services with Frankfurt School District, or Frankfurt, with Woodridge School District 68. Flashback to 6 years ago. In looking through the plans that were approved in the spring of 19 by the village board and the final as-built, we identified 4 changes that would constitute the items included in the minor amendment plan. One of the items that was mentioned was some lighting changes. Basically, the initial plans before they were sent for village approval had shown 3 light standards on the north side and 3 on the south side. But as Musco Lighting did their lighting deployment analysis, they identified that only 2 on each side would be needed. So the middle light standard on the north side and the middle light standard on the south side was removed. That was included in the plans that you all approved. So that ended up not being a minor amendment change because it was already in the original. But to go down and highlight the 4 items that were field changes or as-built changes. And I'll hop back and forth between this summary and an actual diagram of the locations. So the first 2 occurred on the north side of the school where the softball diamonds and baseball diamonds are located. The first one was a request by the Park District to remove the end fencing panels of the dugouts closest to the bleachers on all 4 of the dugouts. There's a southeast field and a northwest field, so that handicap accessible coaches or parents needing to get into the dugout could do so from the concrete pad that houses the bleachers, as opposed to having to roll out onto the dirt infield and through that gate where the kids normally come in and out of to get on and off the field. So we removed those 4 end caps, or we had Action Fencing remove those 4 end caps per the Park District's request. As we were installing the dugout and the fencing and the netting that runs along the third base line of the field on the northwest corner to help keep foul balls from going over into the police parking lot, and on the first base line of the southeast field to help keep foul balls from going on to Janes Avenue, the school board asked if we could do the same thing along the third base line of the southeast field to keep foul balls from going into the north parking lot and potentially, damaging cars that would be parked in that lot, because that'll be a main parking area for Park District or school district softball and baseball programs that are using those 2 fields. So we extended the netting down along that third baseline, similar to what we did along the first baseline and on the other field. The first item resulted in a slight credit to the school district because we weren't using as much fencing. The second item was about a $38,500 additional expense because we had additional poles that needed to be set and netting that needed to be hung. And I will show you there, the pink line is the extension of the netting. And the 4 little orange spots are the 4 areas where the fencing was taken off. Okay. The next 2 items were changes that occurred over at the track and field facility area on the west side of the school. Part of the original plan called for the installation of a 20 by 40 concrete pad to use for staging and storing items. As we got into the program that summer of 2019 into the fall of 2020, the park district and the school district decided that it would be best to have an actual storage shed on top of that pad so that the gator that we were using and the grooming tool for the athletic turf and some of the cones and the hurdles and things that would be stored didn't have to be stored in the maintenance garage that's just to the east of the shed, because that's already full of snow plows and trucks and all the things we use for the maintenance department. So you see the green box, we installed a storage shed or had a contractor install a storage shed for us on that concrete pad. That cost a little under $50,000, I think, when all was said and done, materials and supplies and a miscellaneous amount of labor. And then the last item related to the fencing. We had several locations in the original plan throughout the perimeter fencing around the track and the field area that have gates, obviously. So kids can get onto the track, so we can get the gator and the grooming tool onto the track, possibly a vehicle if you needed to put up or take down cones and hurdles and whatnot. And in looking at how those gates opened and their accessibility, a recommendation was made to change. We had two types of gates that were originally proposed. On either side of the bleachers near the green maintenance shed, we have 2 3-foot individual single swing gates. Those are still there. I didn't highlight those. Those were in the original plan and haven't changed. But all of the yellow areas had originally called for, with the exception of the one on the far west end in the middle of what I'll call turn 3. All of the other ones were originally shown as 6-foot double swing gates. And a recommendation was made to change them from 6-foot wide double swing gates to 8-foot wide rolling gates, where it rolls sideways instead of swinging out and gives you a little bit bigger, 2 foot more of an opening to help allow for access for the grooming tool, for the athletic, for the turf field, for the gator that would be brought around and use it, and to get any equipment in and out. Additionally, on the far east side, that gate adjacent to the high jump pit is the gate that our PE classes use to get on and off the field and the track during the day. And it was thought that a little bit wider gate would make it a little easier for the kids as they're, because we've got, PE classes can have in the old days at least, 30, 40 kids. We don't have as many now with restructuring of our schedule, but with that many kids coming in and out, the thought was let's have a little bit wider gate there. So on the east side, near the high jump pit area adjacent to the school, we installed an 8-foot rolling gate instead of a 6-foot swing gate with a pin in the middle that would anchor it in place when it's closed. On the southeast corner, at the end of what I'll call the 100-yard dash lane, we did the same thing. On the beginning of the 100-yard dash lane, on the south side of that, we did the same thing. And then on the west end, originally, the plan showed a double swing gate on the far southwest corner, facing to the west, and on the northwest corner, near where the scoreboard is now, again, kind of facing that west, on that west face of that fencing. And the thought was we really didn't need those 2. We just needed 1 over there, and we really don't consider the west end of the track as a pedestrian entrance area. There's not much traffic over there. And so we changed that to just 1 gate in the middle. That's an 8-foot wide swing gate, so we can, again, get vehicles and equipment on and off. The other issue is, if you're familiar with that area, at the beginning of where the 100-meter dash line is, there's a decent little drop off there. There's a little swale that kind of runs along the wood line and the fence line there along the edge of the sled hill. And so with that big drop off, we really didn't want to put a gate in right there that's going to have, you're going to be walking or trying to drive a gator out with a big drop off. So we relocated those 2 gates and combined them into 1 and put them on the far west end. Around all of those gate areas, we do have signage that basically says, welcome, the track is available for community and resident use when not in use by the park district, the school district, or a renting organization. Similar to what the park district, I think, has on some of their parks. If any group is interested in renting the facilities, please call, and I believe it has the district office number. It could have the junior high office number, but I think it has the school district office number, because we kind of schedule and rent and reserve that through the main office where I work. So those signs are in place everywhere, welcoming residents and clarifying that they're welcome to use the track. If it's a group that needs to rent the facility, you need to call us and schedule that and, provide a certificate of insurance and all those kind of things. So those were the 4 changes that were field changes that occurred that resulted in the need for this minor plan amendment. And then there were 2 other questions that were brought up during the process that aren't really part of our original plan, but are issues that we've been dealing with in coordination with the village. Al's, of course, aware of one of them, and that's the sidewalk. Originally, there was a call for, I believe, in the Park District's Sled Hill project plan for there's a little stub of a sidewalk over here and kind of in between the new parking lot and the library parking lot. And it used to just dead ends into the grass. The thought was, let's put a sidewalk from there around the west end of the facilities, near where that new fence, on that west side, and tie it into our sidewalk on the south side to provide a walking path from the new parking lot, which us and the village and the Park District all kind of went together on, for people to get there. What we found in the spring of 2021 and the fall of 2021, during our first real seasons of use, as we thought, there really is very little, if any, parking over there during cross-country meets and track meets. Anecdotally, I can't really tell you about the summer necessarily about Park District activities. There may have been a little bit of parking there, but again, we didn't have the new parking lot in yet. There are 30-some spots in that new parking lot. So my guess would be that even in, say, this summer, when the Park District might be doing an evening soccer league or something like that, there might be a handful of cars that might park over on that new parking lot and come up and from the west end possibly watch the games. But what we're really seeing during track season and cross-country season was that all of our parking needs were handled by our parking lot on the north and south side. I was there in the fall when we had a quad meet, which was with us and 3 other schools. A few of the schools didn't have too many kids, but one of them was Old Quarry, and they had quite a few parents and stuff. And we actually were finishing up softball practices right before the cross-country meet started. So there were some folks parking there for softball as well. And we had probably on the south side of the school, 70 to 75% of the parking full, but there were still, a handful of spots. And on the north side, there were even more spots available. South side's typically the busier side of the school. It's where you have more parent traffic and stuff coming through because there's the entrance into the neighborhood as well as off of Jane's. There's an in and an out there. The north side is typically teacher parking during the day and just folks that might be using the softball diamond after school or something on the north side or coming over to the track to watch a soccer or a track meet. So we're really not seeing much, if any, parking over on this side. And with the new parking lot, we don't expect that we'll even come close to using that. Now, on a nice snowy day in the winter next year, hopefully the sled hill will be busy and the parking lot will be fairly full. But again, that's going to be on a Saturday, I would expect. And even then, I wouldn't think that the 30-some spots would completely fill up. So in any event, we're working to wait and see what the traffic flow is over there to see if it really is necessary, if we really want to even invite that traffic from this parking lot back here over across. And so we've kind of worked out an agreement. We're going to keep an eye on that. We're going to look at foot traffic. We're going to see how the wear patterns are. And if there is, we'll put one in, or the Park District will put one in. And as we had agreed to before, we'll help pay for it with them and maintain it. But it's not, it'll primarily be for the sled hill. And I don't know that you guys or the library necessarily have any overflow activities, but it's certainly overflow parking for anything that's happening over on this side of our complex, of our joint complex, I guess you would call it. And then the other question was about the signage. And as I mentioned, it's typical welcome signage that we put up around the track. We didn't put it on the north side because there are no gates on the north side. And if you're familiar with that area, there's a retaining wall over there. So you really don't have people coming and going on the west side unless they're maybe walking down that path for some reason. But I really saw very little, if any, foot traffic or parking traffic during the 2 spring track meets I was at and the 2 fall cross country meets I was at. So our hope is to keep an eye on that area and, see if down the road there's the need for a sidewalk. I think those are all of the items, the 4 items that were part of the field changes, and then the other 2 items that were brought up. If anybody has any questions, clarification, needs anything, please.
Thank you, Kurt. And yes, I'd like to open it up to the village board for any
Sure.
comments or questions at this time.
Yep,
Mayor, I have
Yes.
several
Trustee Blair?
questions.
sure.
You went through the reason for the changes that were made.
Mhm.
My question is, you knew you were making these changes. Why did you not seek approval from the village before they were made? If you knew they had to be made?
Most of these changes were identified as we were designing and building the facility in the summer and the fall.
And
And I didn't realize that these would constitute changes to the degree that would need to have an amendment filed. When it was brought to our attention, we found out from the village, whether is it a major amendment, is it a minor amendment? What level of application do we need to submit and apply for? And we started working on that in the fall and have been, working through the process since then.
the contractor wouldn't have known that a change like that should have been approved through the.
I
I
suppose,
just find it.
I don't know.
I just
Action
find
Fence
it
was our
odd.
fencing
That's all.
contractor. They did not suggest, we used V3 as our project manager and civil engineer, and they hired Hitchcock Architects, and nobody necessarily said anything to the effect that, yeah, we needed to stop construction for what we viewed as fairly minor changes. So, no, I apologize that we didn't.
How many big events have you held on that track field?
We've only had a couple of track meets and a couple of cross-country meets, so no conference or district or regional events. I don't know, the Park District, I believe, had a soccer tournament one weekend.
And how many are planned, do you know? How many are
None.
planned?
Right now.
And I guess my question is, how many times has the library been involved or notified of any event that was part of the agreement that they were going to be consulted when any of these
We
events?
haven't had any major events, but if you're talking about like just a regular track meet,
Yes.
I don't know that they've been notified directly, other than that the information is available on the school district website, but I don't know.
It was my understanding that they were going to be involved in this to make sure that there wasn't a conflict. I mean, that was my understanding. And
Okay,
I went back through minutes and, I didn't specifically count how many times somebody on this board expressed concern for the library parking. But it was significant.
I agree. And we have not seen that. Just so you know, we have not seen significant parking. Now, with the new parking lot being added, our hope is that even those few cars that may have parked in your lot, the one right here adjacent to this building, or the library's lot that's adjacent to the library. And again, when I was there, I witnessed a few. Hopefully those would be parking in the new lot that's now done, that I don't think got really done until after our cross-country season was over. I know it was in process being constructed while cross-country was going on, but I don't think it was fully finished until October, November. So our hope is that if there are any miscellaneous cars that are parking on this side, they'll be parking in that new expanded lot. And I'd be more than happy to have the junior high provide the library with the list of any spring track meets that they'll be hosting this year, as well as they develop a fall cross-country schedule.
It was my understanding that the library was going to be involved in that.
Yeah.
And maybe I misunderstood.
And probably
Reporter,
related
can
to
you
the
help
park
us with that?
district activities as well. I don't know.
Can you hear me?
Want to use this one?
So respectfully, board and trustees, I'd like to first make a point of clarification added to the record that while reviewing the presentation by Mr. Sandin with respect to the field changes that were made, the initial field changes that were made were provided to the village staff by Mr. Sandin that did not outline the removal of fencing panels. So I have provided you with 5 changes that Mr. Sandin had provided to us, but that removal of fencing panels was not added. So I'd like to add that to the record. That also needs to be reviewed by staff. As far as the lighting standard, we will also review the approved plans to ensure that that is actually the case for a potential total of 7 changes that were made without village approval. Additionally, with respect to Trustees Blair commentary or questioning regarding approval. So the approval ordinance 2019-13 that approved the track facility project states the following. There were actually 5 conditions that were added as approval for this project, in which a parking control plan will be prepared by the school district and submitted to the village and the Woodridge Public Library for consideration and approval prior to the school district scheduling any event for the facility. This plan should be applicable to school district events, as well as rentals and events held by external entities, including but not limited to the Woodridge Park District. Additionally, the school district is required to coordinate the scheduling of major events at the facility for both the Village of Woodridge as well as the Woodridge Park Public Library, to reduce the potential for parking conflicts in the town center parking lot.
Thank you.
We've had no major plan. We've had no major events under that. And item number 1 on the narrative that I provided to you is removal of fencing panels at the end of each dugout.
I'm sorry, what narrative?
The one that I sent to you as part of the development application.
So a development application, for anyone that submits an application, it's just that an application. It's used to provide you what the fees are, it's a checklist. And so staff does not utilize a development application with respect to what it is that you're seeking approval for. Throughout the particular project, removal of fencing panels was never presented in any of the plans or in the narratives or in the school district's presentations.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused.
I mean, you could have very well noted it in your application. You have one before you, but again, the village board makes considerations on approval of denial of projects based on the standards and the review of plans by the staff.
Okay, I guess I'm confused. I don't understand. The items that I highlighted are the items that are included in the narrative. And so I thought everywhere I mentioned the netting, I mentioned the dugouts, I mentioned the gates, I mentioned the storage unit. Those are the 4 things we identified that weren't in the approved plan from May of 2019 that were in kind of the final as-built after the plan was, after this facility was finalized in the summer of 2020.
And all I'm saying, Mr. Sandin, is that your email to me on November 2nd does not include the removal of the fencing panels with respect to field changes. That's all. So we'll review that against all the field changes if this minor amendment is approved for that as part of the conditioning of approval.
Okay.
Any other comments? Because I would like to
Madam Mayor?
invite our executive director of our library to come up as well. She's here with us
Madam
this
Mayor?
evening.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please.
I have a few questions. Do you want
We'll
to
come
wait?
back. No, if you don't mind, we'll come back.
That's fine.
Only because I think that we have information that she
That-
would like to bring forward
That's
and it
fine.
may answer. Okay, we'll come
That's
back.
fine.
This is our library executive director, Pam Dubay.
Thank you. Okay, so there's a few things I was taking some notes as you were talking. So ultimately, the library is just concerned with having enough parking for our patrons. So they don't come to the library and get frustrated because there's nowhere to park. We certainly support all of the things that the school wants to do, but we just want to make sure that there aren't people coming to the library and then getting frustrated and leaving because there's nowhere to park. and we had expressed this very much during the approval process. I'm going to say the school seems a little dismissive of these concerns. When the gate was discovered, this gate that we didn't realize was going to be in that location, it was wide open. There was a welcome sign with enumerating the rules of using the track and field area. So it very much looked like this was the primary entrance to the track and field area. I would just like the gate to regularly be locked, which it currently is locked. I really would like that sign taken down. I don't know why you're so resistant to removing that sign. But it absolutely gives the impression that that is the main entrance. The way the orientation is, people are going to park in the library lot, especially for very large events. It's very convenient. The area between the track and field area and the sled hill, that's an obvious place to come with your chairs or your blankets and sit and observe the event. I don't know where else you would park but the library lot. And so the new lot you keep referencing, as if it's completely separate from the library lot, it essentially goes into the library lot. We understand people are going to park there, and that was the purpose of that, the people would park there. But the things that are happening to encourage people to park there is what we would really like to alleviate. They'll park there anyway, but these elements where we're encouraging them is what I'm concerned about. And definitely the sidewalk that's being discussed, to actually construct a sidewalk from essentially the library lot right to that gate.
We don't want to do that.
Okay, well.
We've asked not to.
Well, that's good.
don't plan
I
to.
support that. I support that. And I do want to make sure there was an agreement that I should be informed, or the library should be informed of any major events. So that absolutely needs to happen. The point you make about, well, you haven't seen any issues so far. Well, you've also had no major events.
That's correct.
So those are essentially my concerns. And, just to sum up, keep the gate locked, remove the welcome sign, make sure I'm informed. And that's all I have to say on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, real quick. To the point just raised about the coordination with the other entities if there's a major event. That is already in the pre-existing approvals. Again, Director Porter, that's correct. Yes. So that is in the pre-existing approvals. So if any member of the board wants to amend the proposed ordinance or proposed resolution regarding what these additional issues are, that does not need to be in that because that obligation already exists for the school district.
Thank you. Trustee Abbott?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is it Sandin or?
Yes, Sandin.
Sandin?
Yes.
What is your title?
Assistant Superintendent for Business Services.
And who do you report to directly?
The Superintendent of Schools, Patrick Broncato.
Okay. I guess I'm a little concerned about your process here, or lack thereof. Okay, first of all, I find I'm a little confused because on one hand you say that this gate on the west end, you said it was not expected to be used. Okay, but it has a welcome sign and it was left open.
Well, I can explain that if you'd like.
Okay, please do.
So the welcome signs are at all of the gate entrances at all of our facilities. It's just a standard sign that we put up where anybody might be trying to come or go from that says, welcome, community residents are welcome to use it if as long as it's not being used by the school district, park district, or somebody renting. That gate was left open during a school day, during the week. The cross-country coach uses that gate regularly. That's the only pedestrians I've ever seen coming and going from that gate on Other than that, it's the gator and the equipment that we're using in and out to service the field. So for practice, they start out on the field, they stretch. Part of their approved cross-country course is out and into the woods. They go over the south side of the sled hill, they go out into the woods. I think they end up coming up by Center Drive and they come along your side of your parking lot. They come around the north side of the sled hill a little bit, and then they run through the gate and they finish at the 50-yard line. That's how the normal course is. During the week, they go out running in the trails out there. And so the cross-country coach left the gate open from one night to the next instead of closing it after practice. After I brought it to their attention, I believe it's been closed and locked after practice when they're done all the time. They haven't left it open. It's not intended to be a pedestrian entrance. That's part of the reason we didn't want the sidewalk necessarily put in there, because we're not encouraging folks to park over here, even though we did pay $80,000 for our share of that parking lot for the 30-some spots. But we don't intend or anticipate or want this side of the complex to have to handle any parking, even in a major event. Certainly not in just a regular, typical spring track meet or cross-country meet where you have very little parent involvement because it's right after school, usually during a week. If you have a weekend event, if you have a conference meet where there's lots of schools, then maybe you have a different story, but we've never had that and we don't have any plans to have it right now.
But
So
I guess I'm curious, you keep saying, well, these signs, they always put them up. They always put them up.
Mhm.
You made 4 substantive changes to the plan and you were fine doing that.
Why don't-
Okay, without telling us. Yet here there's something which to me seems like a relatively simple and reasonable request that since we all agree this is not supposed to be an entrance and exit, that maybe a welcome sign is inappropriate. Yet you seem very resistant to taking that down. So I guess it doesn't seem like you're taking ownership that that's your decision. You're saying, well, that's what always happens. But
it has been. That's historically. it
okay,
has been.
well, historically, people follow the plans that we approve. Historically, people don't make 4 changes.
But we didn't consider them substantive, sir. I got to be
Well-
honest. We didn't
well,
consider that
You're a
substantive.
professional, aren't you?
I am.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, please, you're telling me you're making changes and you did so without checking the plans to see whether or not that could be done. Is that what you're saying?
It's not unusual for a project of that scope to have field changes that occurred during the construction of
No,
Any
you're
building.
absolutely right. I agree with you 100%. It's not unusual for changes to be suggested.
and major ones would certainly be ones that would
But I also
draw
know that when
attention.
changes are made, most professionals are going to look at the plans to make sure. They won't sit there on their own, decide what's minor and what's major. They'll look to see what the plans are to see, oh, hey, do we need to go back to the village on this? All the things that you're talking about doing, I don't necessarily think they were unreasonable things to propose. What would have been really nice is this presentation you gave tonight would have been really nice 6 months ago before you approved those changes so that you could have shown respect for this board and respect for the process. And it just troubles me that, our residents are served best when all of the governmental partners, including the schools, work together and do so in a respectful fashion. And I can tell you that your presentation here, it doesn't make me feel that the school board is showing a whole lot of respect to this board or to the library for that instance. And I just hope that maybe you'll reflect and maybe in the future, obviously what's done is done and we'll take action as appropriate. But if in the future, when you're making a change, just a suggestion, maybe you look at the plans and see whether or not that's permitted. Or if you have any doubt, I'm sure Ms. Porter would be glad to go over it with you in advance before you just make these changes. And then we have to basically go out and find them. So
Will
that's
do.
my hope for the
And I will
future.
bring that, I will bring that information back to our school board.
Well,
I mean-
again, I just, in the future, obviously what's done. is
And,
done.
and in all honesty, we do also depend on our service professionals to help us work through this process. And I'm not trying to lay the blame on somebody who's not here. I'm really not. But
Sir,
I count on V3 also to know what is a major or minor change. I guess I don't manage the projects. I pay for the projects. We hire the consultants, the architects, the engineers. I'm not out there day to day, but I will say that if I had thought and believed in any way that any of these changes were more than, and I don't mean to minimize, but immaterial field changes or minor adjustments to the plan, I would have certainly done that. I wasn't aware that they were.
And again,
It's a learning experience for me, and point taken. I will tell you this, next time, if we ever do any other project like this again, we will certainly know and understand that any proposed changes that occur after the initial plan approval will be run through the proper channels and proper procedures. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never had this happen before. So
whatever had what happened.
this type of, we've always, in the communities I worked in before in Frankfurt and Kankakee, these type of changes would be considered minor field changes that will be noted on final as-built because they didn't really change the nature character. Obviously, our rules here are different, and I'm aware of that now.
Well, again, and I'm not trying to be argumentative with you. I just want to make sure we can move forward in a way that the different entities here involved can be trusted partners with one another and treat each other with respect. And again, I just think that, and especially, and again, I'm not trying to be overly argumentative, but you keep saying these are minor field changes. I'll agree with you on the fencing and the part of the dugouts. Those are, I'll agree with you. Those are minor issues. But when it comes to the parking lot, I beg to differ, because the parking issue was one that I remember it well when this came in front of us before. And that was a big issue. And I don't know if you were present for those.
I was, yes.
But I mean, I remember that was a subject that was discussed with some length and with some real concern on the part of the library and to a lesser degree on the part of the village.
We completed the traffic study and we proposed, or the village proposed, and we all agreed to the expansion of the parking lot to help alleviate those concerns. And I'm hopeful that as we go through the next few years, we'll find out that it was hopefully much ado about nothing, and that the massive overflow parking that the library is worried about won't ever come to pass.
I hope you're right.
So far, it appears that way, but until we have a major event, we just won't know.
Right. Again, but the process, I think, needs to be, you need to look at your process is my humble suggestion, because if you're going to make changes, please in the future, look to see, compare it to the plans and see if it's allowed. And if not, come here, we'll be very reasonable with you.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you. Any other trustee? You have a comment?
I just have a question on this gate. Am I correct that the gate itself was not part of the original? So the gate was not, so that is.
There were two other gates that were, though, on that same end of fencing.
So there were various changes that were made. And yes, they are minor field changes. And some of the minor field changes, like the fencing and the dugout, that would have been notated on the building permit so we could keep track of records. And some of them requires a zoning entitlement, such as a minor amendment. But the village was never given that opportunity to give that school district that information because we were never contacted. The gate on the west end, yes, we know the parking lot expansion occurred. The issue is, and if I may respectfully speak for Director Dubay, is that gate at the west end was put there. That is one of our primary issues, is that it was installed and it was never approved. If you would have come to the village, you being the school district 68, would have come to the village to state, we want to move this gate here, I'm almost willing to bet a paycheck that would have been told no, because of the initial concerns that were made with respect to providing direct access to pedestrians / spectators, competitors that would drive up, park, and now they have a direct entrance into this particular track via that particular gate. So that is one of the main issues, is that the gate was installed and it was never approved to be installed. Yes, you had two gates located elsewhere, but the gate that was installed was never approved by the village. And that would have required you to come back to this board to speak to them to request approval of that particular gate that has direct pedestrian access to that close perimeter library parking lot.
Okay. Can I please just clarify that the gate that was installed is not open during events except for cross-country because participants run in and out of there. On the far northwest corner, the yellow item, the yellow highlight on the far top left side of that site map is actually a pedestrian gate that's closer to the library parking lot than the gate we put in. And it was removed because we're trying to discourage pedestrian use of the west side. In addition to that gate, there's a gate below on the far left-hand corner that was removed. So we removed 2 pedestrian gates and put in a utility maintenance access gate that obviously people can walk through if it's open, but our goal is to keep it closed all the time when we don't need it open for our cross-country kids or when we're bringing a vehicle or the grooming tool on and off of the track. So there's actually, the current setup is less conducive for patrons accessing the field from that parking lot. The current setup is less conducive than the original setup because there was a pedestrian gate right at the northwest corner of the fencing, right by the library parking lot. And we took that out because we don't want that to be, we don't want that end of the field to be pedestrian, the busy part. We actually built on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll notice a paver area. We built an entrance to the track, a paved area, an area of pavers where we did the ribbon cutting with the park district. That's the entrance to the track complex, not the far west side where there's no sidewalk. There's no direct access. There's no desire or impetus for us to have people park in the library lot or the new lot or your village lot. And I don't anticipate that there will be much, if any, parking over there. So, you know, I just wanted to make that clear.
Can I just follow up? You're telling us this gate was put in for maintenance,
Mhm.
okay? Now,
And for the cross-country kids.
they can go out any gate. I mean,
No,
really, they
no, they
can
can't.
really go out any gate that you can figure it where they can. There's a lot of gates. I don't believe that they absolutely have to go out that gate. But that being said, your maintenance is stored at the southeast corner of the field. Your
No,
maintenance
south,
equip-
just south in the middle.
The south in the middle. I've been to football games there for my grandson. There are several entry gates to that field. Why does the maintenance equipment have to enter at that end, at the west end?
It can enter at several different locations, but
That's
that
right.
is the easiest way. Again, if you look at the green storage facility where the gator and the grooming tool are used, ideally the vehicle would drive down along the long jump pit, around the corner and through the west gate. It would then have minimal distance driving over the track. It could, theoretically, it could go through the east gate on the far east end next to the school where the PE kids walk in and out. That gate is the same kind of gate. It's an 8-foot rolling gate, but you'd be driving those vehicles up on the paver, the entryway, the sidewalks. It would be more dangerous because there's more pedestrians over at that end of the field and could potentially cause more damage to the concrete. That's why we put the gate on the west end, because it's basically opens up into nothing and it's not an area where there's going to be people milling around, so you can get the gator on the track. You can get,
How much maintenance do you do while there's people there?
well, for example, at the end of a soccer practice, I could see the gator going out on the field to pick up cones. I could see the park district using it to move the youth soccer nets on and off and around the field, because we have 2 youth soccer fields that run north-south, in addition to our big main field that can run east-west. So the idea of having the maintenance vehicles enter the facility where there's the least amount of pedestrian traffic is desirable for us. And that's why we would use that one western gate and eliminate 2 pedestrian gates over there, because we're not wanting to promote pedestrian traffic over there.
I'd like to follow up just with a few points.
Sure.
So I think it would be very beneficial, as in the statement by Director Dubé about the meetings. And these could be pre-meetings that you're having, not necessarily event related, but the meetings talking about any changes. That should include the village, the library, I'm assuming, I don't know if you're meeting with the park district or just the school district to make decisions, but I think it's important to have all those parties before anything is done. Just would be helpful. We would have had this conversation, would have saved a lot of unfortunate stress at this point. So, I think that it would be really important before anything, just any change.
Well, there won't be any more changes. The project is
No,
done.
Well, I'm not sure because we've got a gate, we've got some things we're talking about here. So I'm not really positive, but, I just want to be forthright in saying, I think it could have prevented some of what is going on here this evening and all the questions that are coming forward. Okay. Any discussions that really relates to that and anything that could be impacted. So parking lots, if you've been in the area during the day, we sometimes have very limited parking in and around this whole area, from the post office, the police department, public works, the library, and the village. So,
And that's why we would ensure that any major events would obviously occur on a Saturday. Maybe in an evening, there are lights, so the park district could maybe do something in the evening, but we would certainly not, I wouldn't imagine there would ever be anything that would happen, during a weekday when you would have regular business parking going on.
even on the weekends,
What's
the
that?
library is open on the weekends.
You're talking about maybe one event a year.
Well, and I know we
if
have
anything.
impacts of COVID and other things,
Yeah.
so we probably have not had events like we may normally, but as things keep continuing going forward, we could see, but I want you to be aware that that communication is really important. And let's do it before.
Mhm.
Let's be sure to ask any questions. If there's any changes, anything, just take a moment and make the call and then find out exactly what needs to be done. Okay, I think that way we don't have to have the kind of conversations that have gone on significantly. And,
Yeah.
I know that's not our intent, but we do have things that we have to discuss because unfortunately, it's not to what we've approved. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to ask if any other board member has any comment, question at this time.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please, trustee Page.
and maybe we need to have a conversation of what defines major event, because that seems to be the fallback on everything. What's major? I consider any track and field event, whether it's on a Tuesday or a Saturday, a major event, because somebody has to pick those children up. But I have a question actually for Attorney Pat. What are we voting on this evening? Can we pick and choose on this? So do we have to approve the amendment on that gate? Can we just approve it, let's say, on the netting?
So there is a proposed resolution before you, which is Resolution 2022-18, which is the requested approval from the school district, which is approving all the changes that were not in conformity with what was previously approved. And again, Director Porter, feel free to correct me if I don't get this right. What the four issues that were not approved were the installation of the fencing panels, the installation
The
of
removal.
the light standards,
Oh, sorry.
The removal of the fencing panels, yes.
the removal of the fencing panels,
Yeah.
the light standards.
No,
So there are the 5 existing changes.
Yeah, so let's make sure that we're clear so the trustees all can say if they want to approve some and not approve others or put
Right.
additional conditions on, we all are all on the same page as to what they are.
It is the existing changes that are in the document before you. Staff never had complete details on the lighting standards, so we would need to go back to review and verify that the light standard change, which is a light pole, that Mr. Sandin has said was already previously approved. We want to double check that. And then I want to talk with our building team to make sure that the removal of the fencing panels doesn't require a modification to their building permit. So anything that isn't approved, such as the installation of the gate after the fact, would mean that they would need to remove that gate and bring that particular area of the track to what was approved originally in 2019.
Okay, so again, to see if I can answer your question, trustee Page. So if there was approval of the proposed resolution, then the next step would be to review the light standards correct? Director Porter?
Yes, staff will need to review that.
And then also to review the removal of the fencing panels.
Yes.
Now, the other changes that were made, and it seems to be the ones that are the ones getting the most discussion, are the installation of this gate, which is periodically opened, and the welcome sign that is on that gate. Whether this board wants to approve an amendment to the proposed resolution requiring the removal of that sign, requiring the removal of that gate, or in the alternative, requiring that the gate be locked, or something of that nature. Obviously, it's up to the board. If there's 4 votes in favor of a proposed amendment, then that'll become part of the resolution. But what's being brought before you right now in its current form is a resolution asking for an approval of all these non-conformities, so to speak, with the prior approval.
And I'm looking at 2022-13. Correct?
As the prior approval?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam,
The prior ordinance is 2019-13, the prior approval.
Yes, I'm sorry, you said 2022, it's 2019-13.
Okay.
Attorney Pratt,
Madam-
to follow up on trustee Page, we've got 2 separate ordinances here. We have 2022-13 and 2022-18.
Yeah, 2022-13 is the ordinance. I believe that's for the waiver of fees.
That's just the fees.
Right,
Okay.
which is again typical of when governmental entities come before the board, they seek a waiver of the fees that we normally impose via ordinance.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for the confusion, trustee Page. The 2022-13 is an ordinance which deals only with the fee waiver.
18
No.
does not.
Vice versa. As I was saying, the fee waiver is the, or yes,
Resolution.
excuse me, so I apologize.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please. Trustee.
Director Porter, you'd mentioned that there was something that you needed to check on, or can you tell us again what that was?
So staff wants to double check the placement of the light standard, which is a light pole. Mr. Sandin has stated that that wasn't a field change. It was previously approved. Prior to this meeting, we never had details on that move. So we want to double check just to make sure that it was previously approved to determine what the requirement will be. Like I said, if it's a minor field change, we just do require the submittal of plans to the board, to the village, and then we amend the building permit so we can keep a record of the actual changes that has happened against all projects.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And we were told by V3 that it was, that the 2 middle light standards on the north and south side were taken out. The other ones weren't moved. Those were just taken out because they weren't needed. We had enough light coverage with the 4. So we didn't need to put 6 in. That was put in and approved before the May 19th or May 2019 submittal. That's what V3 told us. So I'll verify that, please. But yeah.
Madam Mayor, I guess I would be opposed to chopping this up tonight. I mean, I would think either we vote on it, or perhaps the best thing would be to continue just to the next. I mean, is there any, I don't know if there's anything, any time, is this time sensitive? If not,
Not that I'm aware
Everything's
of.
done.
I mean, in my view, rather than, trying to, we've gotten a lot of information tonight, and rather than trying to take that and work with ordinance 2022-13, I'll be making a motion to continue this to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
Are you making that motion now, or are you just
I'm
indicating
making
your
it now.
intention?
I wasn't clear. I kind of said both. I'm making the motion now.
Yes, okay, so just so we're clear again, Mayor, I don't want to step on your toes. So trustee Abbott, you're making a motion to continue this to the next meeting, and trustee Page, you are seconding that motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have
Could I
a-
ask just one final question?
Yes, please.
If removing the welcome sign from the west gate would solve the problem, would that be an agreeable compromise? If not, then that's fine. But in order, I mean, because the facility is done and it's built as is, and the gate's locked, and it's going to stay locked until you tell us that we have the okay to unlock it. We'll just use one of the other gates to get the, the equipment on and off and the kids on and off. So if it needs to say lock, I'll say lock. But if removing the sign would solve the problem, then I'm not opposed to doing that.
Madam Mayor.
If it's that big of a deal. I mean, if that's a significant enough,
That's not my only issue.
okay, then that's fine.
I agree with the motion and the second. The only thing I would add is that when this gets rewritten, it takes into the consideration the points that Director Dubé has made. I would like to see those incorporated into the ordinance, and maybe we can look at it or whatever.
I think it probably would be advisable, though, that we review those because there are some that maybe we've answered tonight already.
Correct.
There are others that might need to be addressed and would be through further discussion as to what's been brought forth tonight in our review.
And certainly defining what's major, what we want to consider major or not major is something I would want to do. So we're clear on, when we need, what we need to make sure we're letting the library or the village, the park district, or whoever know about. And them as well, because the park district has a lot of activities on that field as well that are possibly more major than a Tuesday afternoon track meet with, 2 junior highs. So.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that was going to be actually my one question is that who controls that gate? Is it the school district or is it the school district and the park?
I think we both have a key. I think we both have a master key that probably works for all of the locks on all of those gates. I'm sure it's the same one.
Because then I would like to find out from the park district what their plans are for that gate when they have events.
Yeah, and I don't believe they have, well, they had some this summer. And I don't believe they opened it except for when they were bringing equipment on and off. But
I think
you have to ask them.
Yeah, it would
for
be
sure.
important for them to also be included in the discussions with the library and District 68 on what, and let's not talk about what's major or not, but you guys can
When
figure
it's
that
locked,
out.
when it's not. yeah.
But to make sure that everyone is on the same page as far as events go.
And I would include the village as well. Yes,
Mayor, may I provide a point of clarification on what's been presented to you tonight?
yes, please.
So there's no such thing as a major or minor field change for point of clarification. There's major and minor amendments to zoning entitlements.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Director Porter. I believe the major is in the context of what constitutes a major event, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As
Okay.
opposed to the nature of a major and a minor.
Or minor
amendment.
amendment.
Okay.
Okay, so the staff's takeaway is that we will double check with respect to the removal of the panel as well as the light pole. But additionally, what has been presented before you with respect to the minor amendment is that if you do not approve the minor amendment, that means that the school district will be required to remove every gate that was not previously approved and bring it back to the condition that it was approved to. That is what's before you. If you
And
don't
put 2
approve
new
it,
gates in, right?
excuse me,
And put 2 new gates in.
you will
other gates that are-
restore that facility to what it was approved based on the original approved plans. That is what's before them. So yeah, all of it was done after the fact. But what's before my mayor and board of trustees is that they have to make the decision. If they don't approve it, the school district will be required to bring those plans into conformance. Removal of a storage shed that you installed that wasn't approved by the village board. Every gate that was installed that was not a part of the approval plans would need to be removed. And that area will need to be brought to the approved plans. So that's the intent of the minor amendment that's before you, that's being continued. Thank you.
Do we need to vote on the motion?
Hold on just a moment. Yes, yeah, please. I've asked Al to please update.
Mayor Cunningham was seeking what the next steps are. So staff will work with the school district staff on clarifying a couple of these items. There's a request for clarification from both the school district and the park district on what the intent of the gate is. We'll ask for clarification on that. We'll get that from writing from both agencies, so you'll have it in your packets for next meeting. And there'll be a drafted revised ordinance that will contain some of the conditions that Director Dubé has requested of the school district relative to the sign and the lock of the gates. And that will be brought forward and drafts will be presented.
Thank you very much for that update. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor with regards to ordinance 2022-13. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Going to ask our clerk, if there's no further discussion, to please call the roll.
Trustee Krusek,
Just for clarification, what exactly are we voting on
We're
here?
continuing, the motion, if I understand trustee Abbott's motion correctly, is to continue this matter to March 17, 2022 for
I
consideration.
just want to make sure that
Yeah.
that's what we're voting on.
That's
and
what we're
not
voting on.
Yes or no on the
Correct.
actual, okay. Aye.
Trustee Page,
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
Trustee Abbott.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then with regards to resolution 2022-18, going to ask Attorney Pat, please.
Obviously, the motions or the items are pretty much tied into each other, as evidenced by the fact that I got the numbers mixed up when we were discussing them. And so I guess the question for the board is, do you want to also continue item resolution 2022-18 to the next date for the same purpose?
Yes, I'm making a motion to continue resolution 2022-18 to the March 17th regularly scheduled meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Abbott. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Page. Any discussion on this? Our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Page,
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
Trustee Krusek.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So this item will come back on March 17th.
Next, item C is ordinance 2022-14. It's an ordinance amending the village code of the Village of Woodridge, Title 3, Chapter 2, Section 5, Real Estate Transfer Tax. If there are any questions, Director Leto can certainly answer those for you.
So with regards to ordinance 2022-14, I'm looking for a motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Blair. In a second.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Martinez. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
Trustee Page.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Last item this evening is item D. That's presentation of the fourth quarter financial report for 2021. Director Leto.
Okay, thank you very much, Administrator Stonage. Good evening again, Mayor and Board. Let's see if I can, okay. So I just wanted to kind of talk briefly, a grand overview of our finances in 2021. Despite the lingering pandemic, last year, actually, the village's financial outlook improved. As you'll see in a moment, revenues, especially in the general fund, performed really, really well last year. And not just in comparison to 2020, which we know we're down due to the beginning of the pandemic, but we're also at above or at levels that we've seen prior to the pandemic. Sales taxes, which were due to new taxation legislation for online sales, has increased nicely this past year, and we're really seeing similar revenues continue into 2022. So while these were of the biggest significance, we really saw strong revenues almost across the board last year. And as we settled into our new norm this past year, we were able to loosen our strict spending restrictions and sort of kind of get back to business as normal. And we also received half of our American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds, last year. Currently, these are sitting in a liability account at this time. They're not reflected in the revenues I'm going to present to you tonight. Those actually will be recognized as revenue as the board begins to spend those dollars. Those funds, those are very much like the CARES Act funds that were used for a variety of purposes. They can be used for public safety, for revenue loss, and water and sewer infrastructure, just to name a few. And we have until 2024 to identify the use of those funds, and the board is going to be working through that a little bit later this year. Last year, we also completed about 90% of our design work for our facilities project. This was planned, and we also issued, 20 million in bonds that will fund the majority of this project. This was the second of 3 planned issuances, with 5 million that was issued in 2020, and the remaining dollars needed will be issued later this year. Unfortunately, in June, the community was struck by an F3 tornado, and so we experienced increased costs for cleanup efforts and resident assistance. And we also saw a considerable increase in our building permit activity as repairs were being done. So let's turn our attention to the general fund here. First, you're going to notice, I just want to kind of set the stage. I have the words preliminary through this presentation a lot, and we label it as such because these are numbers that occurred for the village really on a cash basis, especially when we're talking about our revenues. Right now, we've not done our year-end accruals where we recognize the revenues that we earned in 2021, but we didn't receive them until 2022. We've not finished our year-end closed, and we've not had our audit yet. So these numbers are not yet finalized. Okay, so looking here in the general fund, we started 2021 with a fund balance of 20.8 million. Currently, we've received $21.7 million in revenues against 23.1 million in expenses, that bringing us to a preliminary year-end fund balance of 19.4 million. At that 21.7 million in revenues, we outperformed our budget by about 2 million, and we are about $600,000 higher than 2020. Again, that's without our year-end accruals. On our expense side, we have returned to pre-pandemic operations in order to provide continued level of services to our residents and businesses. And it's really important to note that even though our expenses have been impacted by rising inflation and the tornado that struck us, they do remain under budget by about $473,000. Looking at our overperformers in the general fund, and as I mentioned at the beginning, many of our revenues did well last year. In fact, I have 2 whole slides on overperformers and only 1 slide on underperformers. And so that is a welcome change from the last couple of years. And so I'm kind of excited to be showing them to you tonight. Sales taxes, you're going to hear about that a lot tonight. They came in almost $900,000 over budget at just under 6.3 million. Our income taxes, almost $1 million over budget at 3.9 million. Cannabis sales, as we all know, the state, they have been through the roof since we legalized cannabis. So that also has benefited us as well, as we do receive a share of those revenues from the state. And so we brought in almost 46,000 last year. And our personal property replacement tax, which is really small considered to other revenue sources, but it was over budget, almost double.
Nadine,
Yes,
can I just interrupt briefly?
absolutely.
I had a question regarding the sales tax.
Yes.
Does that reflect online sales tax?
That reflects about a half a year of online.
Do we know how much of that increase is online versus, the existing businesses that we had?
We really don't have that data. So we don't get a breakdown from the state that says this X amount is from online and X amount is from normal sales. We can only judge based off of what we've seen in prior years and the increase that we're seeing. And it's hard on top of that because the prior year was pandemic years, right? So those are skewed, down anyway. So it's difficult to tell.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, slide 2 of my overperformers here. So we all know the housing market absolutely crazy last year, but on the upside, our revenues really benefited as a result. We received $875,000 in revenues from real estate transfer taxes. Our reimbursements, these are really to cover the cost that we incurred on behalf of others. They did come in over budget by $76,000, but that's a really difficult revenue source to predict because we don't really know how much costs necessarily we're going to incur. And it should represent a cost on the expense side as well. So it should be a wash for the most part. And our building permits came in $162,000 higher than budget. Again, the result mostly of the tornado that occurred last year. Okay, so my sad slide. Of course, not every revenue source can be a superstar, right? We did have a handful that did not do as well as expected. The first one was court fines. And so these really have just been declining over the past several years. As the courts increase their fees and then the judges reduce the costs to the offenders, we are the last in line when they're distributing any revenues that they receive. And so we are really the ones that lose out in that equation, unfortunately. And you can see exactly what that looks like in this slide here. Also, some of this might be because of the courts are behind in cases due to the pandemic and some of the closures that they had. And all combined, we only received $185,000 in revenue in this line item last year. Our village fines as well are down. We collected 71,000. They've also been on a decline. Prior to 2016, the revenues here were over $200,000. We've not seen that obviously in years. And really, the result of that is that we just don't have the ability to enforce payment for our parking tickets. And that's really what's causing that issue here. Our licensing revenues, they were down slightly at $309,000. And you'll recall that the board provided pandemic relief by reducing our liquor and business licensing by 25% last year. And our alarm fees are down slightly at $26,000. Looking on our expense side, we have savings in personnel for the year of about $700,000. Position vacancies, that's the main reason that you're seeing here. Although we are seeing some increased costs in our services line item as we have placed temps in some of our areas, and 2 positions can be filled because we have such a tight labor market. So when we look at our service line item, temp staffing is adding to some of those costs there, but the increase over budget this past year was really the effect of the tornado. Cleanup efforts that cost the village nearly $500,000 last year. The transfer line item, it really should always be equal because we know what our transfers are going to be at the start of the year. And the commodities here also increase over budget, again, due to the tornado. Capital, much lower than we expected to spend. That's due to a combination of both cost savings as well as just projects we didn't complete for the year. We did have the improvements that were done to this boardroom and other meeting rooms to provide Zoom capabilities. We moved that up to 2020 because we identified that was eligible expenses for some of the COVID relief funds that were available. So we took advantage of those. We also had some improvements to the Public Works facility that were not done. One of them being a new exit for public work employees. And so that's one of the reasons why costs are lower than budget. Any questions on the general fund? Okay, moving on to the water and sewer fund here. The fund started 2021 with a fund balance of $8.9 million. We saw increased water usage continue from 2020 into 2021 as people continued to limit their travel. We also had a warmer, drier summer, and both of those things helped us to boost our revenues, right? We boost water usage, it boosts our revenues. Expenses for the year at $8.5 million are much lower than budget, and that's really related to decreased capital spending as compared to our budget. But if you compare our actual expenses this year to prior years, we really are just in line with our usual spending. The preliminary ending fund balance in the water and sewer fund is just under $11 million. We do have overperformers as well. And I just mentioned the fact that we had increased water usage. And so the main revenues in our water and sewer fund are user fees. And so you can see here that our water sales at 7.1 million, our sewer fees at 700,000, both of which are over budget. We also have here as an overperformer, our water connection fees. And now this year, it's really just a fraction of the total revenues we receive in this fund compared to years prior, but it was still higher than budget at $66,000. We do expect this will continue to drop off though as developments are nearing completion and we don't have a lot of available land for new developments coming forth. Looking at the expenditure side, we have personnel, transfers, and commodities. All of them are almost spot on to budget. That rarely happens. It was pretty interesting to see that. The variances that we do see here, though, that caused that $4.8 million difference from the budget are services, about $131,000 lower. But really, the impact here is capital. We spent about $500,000 and we had $5 million budgeted. Several of the projects were rolled into 2022. Those include the planned water tower painting, the completion of the Mending Wall lift station improvements, as well as the 75th Street water main replacement project. Questions on the water and sewer fund? Okay, let's move to capital projects. So the capital projects fund accounts for all of our non-water related capital projects that are in excess of $20,000. So the fund started the year with a fund balance of almost 14.5 million. And the major revenue source here is sales taxes. And I don't want to continue boasting, but we did really well in sales taxes this past year. I'd like to say that that $23 million you see in the highlighted area was all from sales taxes, but it's not. 20 million of those is bond proceeds. So you recall last year, we had our largest bond issue to fund the facilities project. And so you see that reflected here in revenues. If we were to remove those, because that's a one-off, from the revenues, we're left with about $3.5 million that we've collected compared to a $4.3 million budget. The variance that is here is a $600,000 transfer we've not yet done, and that's to take funds from the state and federal drug funds over to help pay for a portion of the facilities project. So that will be done in short order as part of our year-end processes. We also have a small amount of grant proceeds that we budgeted for that we had not received last year. On the expense side, we're just under 5 million, considerably lower than budget. And that was unspent dollars for the facilities project, the Hillcrest traffic signal, and the 75th Street frontage roads resurfacing, all of which have been reallocated to this year's budget. And then the current year ending fund balance at 33 million is artificially high, and it will be expended down over the next 18 months as that project gets underway. Revenues here, both sales and income taxes, just like the general fund, exceeding budget. On the expense side, variances here, unspent capital projects. I really touched on this already. I'd be happy to answer any questions. But in the interest of time, I think I will just mention some of the projects we did do this past year. And those include the town center parking lot, our facilities project, the zoning code update, as well as the beginning of the Woodward Hillcrest traffic signal. And then the village has a number of other funds. I should ask if there are any questions on capital projects. My apologies. Okay, village has a number of other funds. They were presented in the financial report that was provided to the board last week. In summary, I just really want to point out the last two funds, which are the last two lines here. In the vehicle and equipment replacement fund, looking on the expense side, really supply chain issues was one of the major factors here in why there's such a variance between actual expenses and budgeted expenses. And then on the last line, which is the police pension fund, on the revenue side this time, investments performed exceedingly well last year for them, resulting in this large increase that you see compared to budget. And so that was welcome to see as well. Under cash and investments, the village currently has $73.5 million at the end of this fiscal year. Again, approximately 20 million of them are bond proceeds. Right now, we have about 90% of our funds invested in some form of investment vehicle. And our village diversifies its holding as per our investment policy. What we can invest in is dictated by state statute. Looking to investment maturities, here you see that all of our investments, we ladder them over a 3-year time frame. That is the maximum allowed investment maturity that is currently in our investment policy. And really what changes here, we have changing rate environments that impacts this ladder as staff tries to maximize our earnings potential, as do cash flow needs. And that's why you see that it's not evenly spread across the 3 years. Our portfolio was earning on average about 1.5% last year, and that's currently outperforming our benchmarks at this time. So in summary tonight, overall, our revenues, as I mentioned before, did really well last year, helped by changes in the sales tax legislation. We will see a full year this year of that impact, right? And so that's really going to give us a better picture as to what we can expect, hopefully in future years in relation to our sales tax revenues. We also worked really hard on our facilities project, and we are looking forward to breaking ground this spring. Nationally, we saw unprecedented inflation occur last year. That has directly affected our cost of doing business. And unfortunately, that's not just a one-year impact, right? That's going to continue for years to come as a result of that. And near the end of the year, we saw our investment earnings finally start to uptick a little bit as the Federal Reserve raised the interest rates in response to them, those inflationary pressures. However, They were fully expected to continue into this year, and the war on Ukraine may have changed that outlook. And so we will keep the board posted as this new year gets underway. And with that, Mayor, that concludes my presentation. I'd really be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you very much, Director Herletto. Always so informative. I'm going to ask my fellow board members if anyone has any questions or comments. Anyone have anything? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation and all the information.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We move to the end of our meeting. I'm going to remind everyone to please take good care. Help your neighbors, help your family. Do want to wish a special friend and neighbor in Woodridge that lives at Woodridge Horizon happy 99th birthday. You know, she is celebrating yesterday, so I wanted to share that. She's definitely someone that is an inspiration and lives life fully. With that, as there's no further business to discuss this evening, going to ask please for a motion to adjourn our regular meeting of the Village Board.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek, and a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Martinez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. It is 8:56 p.m.